often heard the concerns that princess characters in films and toys can have a negative effect on young girls. But a new study says that as children get older, princess culture, as it's called, is a good thing. The girls are more likely to have progressive views about women.
Yes, this study says that characters like Anna and Elsa from Frozen are fearless adventurers who support each other without the help of any passing princes. So is being exposed to characters like Elsa in Frozen or Moana going to leave children with stereotypes about women and how they should look and behave, or see them as strong, independent role models?
Joining us now from Sheffield is Stephanie Hill, a former Miss United Kingdom who dresses up as Disney princesses for children's parties. And from Burford, we can speak to Ateh Jewel, a beauty journalist who says they're unrealistic versions of women. So, Ateh, it's interesting because you think they're unrealistic versions of women, but this study clearly feels like there's been quite a dramatic shift. And some of these characters are actually really, really important role models for girls.
I mean, I grew up watching Disney princesses. I also grew up hating my hair, feeling cursed I had darker skin, and I have 10-year-old twin daughters. And when they're about 3, when the first Frozen came out, they said to me, "Mummy, it's such a shame I can't be a princess. We can't be princesses because we don't have straight yellow hair. We can only be maids because we have curly brown hair." And that's when I woke up and thought we need to do better. And, you know, I really had to think about and reset the button on what these princesses represent, because they didn't represent my daughters. The frog princess, who is the closest thing they have to representing them, is an animal for most of the film. You know, her biggest ambition is to run a restaurant and not a kingdom, and her prince is some kind of jazz-loving degenerate. And I also tell my girls with caveats, you know what, if you want to grow up and marry a princess, that's also okay. So I think it just needs to evolve a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, there has been a little bit more introduction of diversity in recent years. The track record up to a couple of years ago wasn't that great. But do you not think that things have changed a little bit?
Things are definitely better with the message of rescuing yourself and sisterhood, but there's so much more to go. I was watching She-Ra on Netflix with my daughters just the other day, and they were like, "Oh, Mummy, this is Bo, he has 2 dads. This is Glimmer, she has a fuller, juicy body like you." And it was just shocking. And the main character, She-Ra, spoiler alert, is in love with her nemesis, Catra. Now, I remember watching She-Ra in the 80s. It was completely different. And I was just so happy that this is just mainstream. It is the default setting for my daughters, and I think Disney have to catch up with that.
Stephanie, one of the things that people often say is it's the image of these princesses. It's their bodies. It's the way they look. As Ateh was just saying, her little girl said, "It's such a shame we can't be princesses because we don't have long blonde hair. We can only ever be the maid." I mean, the stereotype that we see is, as we're looking at that picture there, is these very tiny waists, perfect hair, big eyes, and that's something that still persists, doesn't it? We have seen different versions, and the leading girls in some of these films are different shapes and sizes, but that default setting is still there, isn't it? And that's still a concern, surely.
I absolutely agree, and I think that it's been a long time coming that we've been needing to see more diversity in the Disney princesses. It shouldn't just be something that's happening now. It should have been something that started many, many years ago. Being a 90s child, my Disney princesses were Mulan and Pocahontas. But again, that should have been the norm way, way back. We shouldn't probably have been focusing on the European princesses' stories, despite their origins being from the Brothers Grimm stories. But the thing is, I kind of think as a child, I wasn't really particularly aware of the body types of these princesses. I was more bothered about what they were singing, what they were doing, and how they were tackling the problems. And I think this is probably what this study has uncovered. And especially looking at the terms that we're finding that actually children that grow up with these stories are less influenced by tropes such as toxic masculinity as well. So maybe we should give our children a little bit more credit. They are able to distinguish between fantasy and reality and understand that these are cartoon characters, and although they have quite disproportionate bodies, that actually they're taking away the stories and the lessons from these Disney princess franchises.
And you dress up as princesses, don't you?
I do.
And when you do, what do the children that you interact with say that they want to be? Because what's interesting about this study, this is from Brigham Young, is that originally they did a study which said that princess culture influences girls in a way that makes them more susceptible to stereotypical behaviours. And the long-term impact means that they adhere to sexist female stereotypes, which in later life can affect everything from their career choice to roles within the home and body image. But it seems that a few years later, they've completely changed their minds at Brigham Young University, because they now see long-term positive effects of princess culture, less likely to adopt attitudes of toxic masculinity, and much more supportive of allowing individuals to feel and show emotion. I mean, I think we're all confused, aren't we, about what these princesses are teaching us? And isn't it about the individual child and what they take from it?
Absolutely. I think the best part about research, certainly as we've seen during the coronavirus pandemic, I'm an academic myself, and you can always go back to research and revisit it and look at it from a different perspective. So the fact that they have revisited this, despite coming up with the initial study as having some really quite polarized views, it's nice for them to revisit it and actually see that on the longer term, it does have a positive impact on these children, or maybe children are developing. And again, like I said, they're able to distinguish and take away the positive aspects of these stories and implement them into their day-to-day lives in a positive way, rather than kind of be influenced around the gender stereotypes that you can often see probably associated with these princesses. But when I was a Disney princess, or when I performed as one, the children are more bothered about the powers. So let's say, for example, Elsa, they want to be able to shoot snow and ice. That's what they're more bothered about, rather than, let's say, the pretty dress.
That's the superpower is a key thing. I mean, just coming to you, Ateh, for the last answer, because one or two of our viewers will get in touch and say, for heaven's sake, little girls have been dreaming about being princesses for many, many years. BBD says, it's just the PC brigade moaning again. Why can't they just enjoy the princesses like we all enjoy the princesses, and they can grow up to be strong, sophisticated, adventurous, independent women as well?
I think what my children were telling me at the age of 3 was that they were being infected by this negative noise, this invisible negative noise. And if you have been othered in any other way, if you have not been seen as the default setting as mainstream, it can be quite harmful. Now, I've watched all the Disney films, I've watched it with my children, but I need to tell them, you know what, you can also be a lawyer. You don't have to grow up dreaming about being the daughter of a powerful man or the wife of a powerful man. So, you know, and don't get me started on how it views middle-aged women. Most of the Disney villains are all sort of menopausal women on the verge of a breakdown, wanting to wreak vengeance because their beauty is fading. There's so many messages that I think we need to start sort of looking and having a conversation about. My children at 6 were saying that at school, their classmates were talking about their thighs were too thick, their waist was too thick. You know, conversations about you have to be super skinny to be on TV. And my daughters, bless them, said, no, you don't. Look at my mum. So I think representation is really important. Seeing is believing. And I just want my girls and other kids around the world who don't fit into Stephanie's beautiful mould to also feel seen, powerful, and have choices.
And also realise they're beautiful, of course. You know, yeah. And I love, Ateh, I love the fact that you describe the non-Disney body as fuller and juicier. That's
more of it. I would love to see like a plus-size Disney princess or prince. Or we just need to do better. Look at Black Panther. My daughter said, "Wow, look, this Princess Lupita. She's got darker skin like you, mummy." And the other character is a general of an army. They just need to step up and do better. And so we can all enjoy Disney on another level.
Well, lovely to talk to both of you. Thanks both very much.
Thank you.